Part 2. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Each night, I was forced to entertain different men, their hands rough against my skin, their eyes void of sympathy. I learned to detach my mind from my body, to silence the screams within me. Amara controlled everything: where I went, what I wore, who I met. She took all the money I made, claiming it was to pay off my debt. I soon realized I was trapped in a cycle I couldn't escape. One night, after another painful encounter, I sat on the cold floor of my room, my heart heavy with regret. I thought about my brothers. Had they eaten today? Were they still living with Uncle Emeka, or had they been thrown out? Tears welled in my eyes, but I wiped them away. I couldn't afford to cry. I had to find a way out, a ray of hope. One evening, at the club, I met a woman named Aisha. She was different from the other women. Had encountered, her eyes held warmth, and her voice carried kindness. She had been in this life too, but somehow, she had managed to escape. "You don't belong here," she whispered to me as I poured her a drink. I looked around nervously, making sure Amara wasn't watching. "I don't have a choice," I muttered. "There's always a choice," she said, "but you need to be smart. Do you have anyone back home who can help you?" My heart sank. My uncles had betrayed me. My brothers were too young. I had no one. Aisha sighed. "Listen, I know someone who helps girls like us escape, but it's dangerous. If Amara finds out, she'll do everything to stop you." Fear gripped me. Amara was powerful, and she had connections with dangerous people, but deep inside, I knew that if I didn't take this chance, I would never be free. The escape plan for the next few weeks. I pretended to obey Amara, acting as though I had accepted my fate, but inside, I was planning my escape. Aisha introduced me to a man named Karen. He worked with an organization that rescued trafficked girls. He promised to help me get out of Dubai and back home. The plan was simple, but risky. One night, while Amara was distracted, I would slip out of the apartment and meet Karim, who would take me to a safe house. From there, they would arrange my return to Nigeria. The night finally came. My heart pounded as I slowly turned the doorknob, praying Amara wouldn't hear me. The hallway was empty. I took a deep breath and stepped outside, my feet moving quickly toward the exit. Just as I reached the staircase, a voice froze me in my tracks. "Where do you think you're going?" I turned slowly, my blood running cold. Amara stood at the top of the stairs, her eyes filled with rage. She lunged at me, grabbing my arm. "You think you can run from me?" she hissed. I struggled, but she was strong. "Please, let me go," I pleaded. She slapped me hard across the face. "You're mine, Esther. You owe me." Summoning every ounce of strength, I pushed her away and ran. I could hear her screaming behind me, but I didn't stop. I ran into the street, where Karim was waiting with his car. "Get in," he shouted. I threw myself inside, and he sped off just as Amara burst out of the building, her furious screams fading into the night. Freedom at last. The next few days were a blur. Karim and his organization hid me in a safe house, helped me get new travel documents, and arranged my flight back home. When I finally stepped onto Nigerian soil, I dropped to my knees, tears streaming down my face. I was free, but freedom came with a heavy price. I was no longer the same innocent girl who had left home with dreams of a better future. The scars, both seen and unseen, would stay with me forever. I returned to my village, only to find that my brothers had been thrown out by our uncles. They were living on the streets, struggling to survive. I vowed that I would never let them suffer again. A new beginning. Using the little money I had left, I rented a small room and started a small business, selling food in the market just like my mother once did. It wasn't easy, but I was determined. I wanted to rebuild my life, to give my brothers the education I never had. I knew I could never erase my past, but I refused to let it define my future. I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor. Moral lesson: never losing hope. Even in the darkest moments, Esther's story reveals that hope is an essential part of survival. Whether it's the promise of escaping the cycle of exploitation or the vision of returning home, hope keeps Esther moving forward. This teaches us the importance of holding on to hope. Even when the road ahead seems uncertain,